hear that, because I think what you'll find is a very good overlap in qualities that are basically been bred into you that people in the financial world, in the corporate world, are looking for. So maybe we start with Mateus, student.
Hi, Mateus Ayala. Most of the skills that I definitely got from the military were more on the leadership end, as far as looking at how I can translate that to what I want to go into. Because I was in the infantry, but I'm trying to get into more of the information technology, cybersecurity field. So obviously, hard skills aren't really there, right? When it comes to the infantry and what's being translated for that. But I was a platoon sergeant in the Marine Corps, and that requires a tremendous amount of organization and time management skills. It requires a tremendous amount of leadership also. I had at times anywhere between 30 to 40 guys that I was in charge of. And we actually deployed it on an exercise overseas that was a NATO exercise. And so we were the tip of the spear of that exercise, and that required a lot of autonomous leadership in terms of decision making. So I guess decision making would be a big one.
Great. Any other vets willing to speak?
I see Julia.
Julia Werner?
Yes, hi, I can go. I was in the Marine Corps for 4.5 years. I was a logistics analyst, and I got selected out of that job to work in a more administrative position, because there was this exercise that we had to go on, and it required a lot of organization, and the person delegated to organize it was a night flight, and it consisted of about 100 Marines, and they weren't really doing what they were supposed to do. And I was a corporal, so I was the only female on the exercise, and I kind of took the responsibility of guiding that whole thing. And there were no errors, but I was communicating with the entire squadron of just logistics, and I got selected out after the exercise had completed. My senior leaders kind of plucked me out of my job and put me with them, and I realized that I had a strength for communications. And so I'm very interested in getting into public relations, mass media marketing, and I've worked for the SVA here at Fordham for 3 years. I started off as like a social media marketer, and then I became vice president, and I also became president. And it's been a wonderful experience, but I'm really seeing that I enjoy communicating with the public.
That's great, Julia. I think now more than ever, as we're seeing today, we should be face-to-face, but we're not. And it's almost more of a challenge, right, to communicate this way. People aren't used to it. They know how to log on. Time is limited. So definitely there's opportunities out for people like yourself that are also tech savvy in the way, not from an IT support perspective, but from a social media perspective. You see posts all the time, whether it's a sports franchise or a corporation. And as you can see right now, everything is on the spotlight, right? We're seeing, quote, good behavior and bad behavior because we're not distracted with sports, with drinking at bars, with meeting friends, So now more than ever, you get a misstep. You look at even a politician talking about their quarantine can lead to a Twitter storm. So definitely timely, what you want to do and your skill set.
Mm-hmm.
Who's next? Don't be shy. Any veterans out there?
Yeah, sure. I'll go real quick. Hi, my name's Peter Watkins. I was a corporal and eventually got promoted to sergeant before I EAS from the Marine Corps. I was a logistics manager for majority of my time as a motor transport operator. My first unit was part of 31st MU. We did a lot of humanitarian aid missions, two specifically, one in the Philippines and one in Saipan, 2016. During my time, I was one of the most senior guys. I joined when I was 22, and there's a lot of 18 to 20-year-olds while I was joining. So I was put in a leadership billet and then promoted early among my peers due to just the initiative that I had, the dependability, and the knowledge that I have in my MOS. As Mateus said earlier, I was in an MOS which didn't require a lot of skills. We were driving trucks, but managing was really where it came. My bread and butter was my communication, my dependability, the initiative that I took when I was leading different things. I was a convoy commander for most of our Talisman Sabre exercise, which is a faux invasion of Iraq. Then we're working with coalition forces to understand how logistics supports ground combat elements and different things like that. I was an explosives transport driver, which by itself is an extremely dangerous job, especially if you don't know what you're doing. And other than that, it was my second unit was 1st Battalion, 11th Marines, where I was the line NCO managing over 25 to 30 million dollars of equipment when it came to attaching 777 howitzers and various amounts of trucks that we had. So I would say all the transferable skills that I learned from that is the communications that I learned, the initiative that I had to take when leading my junior Marines, and just the tenacity to be able to push on. And that's pretty much it.
Excellent. Certainly, now more than ever, I think one thing that you've said more than once is dependability. Well, we're dealing with nothing but dependability right now. Volatility is the name of the game, and certainly if you can be that person that people rely on, that translates into any field, really. Are there any other vets on the phone? I see one here that's not named. It's 212-231-1000.
I think that's me dialing in, Juan Lopez.
Oh, okay. Hey, Juan. So usually we have some of the mentors kind of, as Tom said, reinforce some of the things we're hearing. Maybe you guys can give some examples of how those qualities, matter to you in your line of business. Is it Peter? Oh, Peter, sorry. Who's PayPal? Steven.
It's me. I'm here. So I was listening and to all of you, and I wrote notes for each one of you. So do you want me to go that way, Jimmy? You think that would work?
Yeah, I think that would help.
Is it Mateus? Is that how you say it?
Mateus.
Theists. Okay. So you're right in my wheelhouse. Obviously, you said information security. You mentioned platoon sergeant, decision making. So there's two parts of IS that I would say. Obviously, you've got the hardware side, software side, three parts, sorry, the software side, and then you've got some of the compliance part of it. All of that, to some extent, is you said decision making. Huge decision making is involved there for all of those. And when I say that to you, for a corporation, the decision making part of it is especially when it comes to information security, it's a matter of anything from a hack. It could be anything from the bad PR that follows that hack. So all of it is going to play a part in that, essentially. So I can tell you here internally, we have phishing is a massive part of the business. Huge. Like example, I had to report LinkedIn yesterday for a phishing attempt by someone who tried to connect. So I had to all the way escalate to that. So it all depends. What I'm saying is, you being on the front lines of making decisions from your experience in the military, it's going to be no different from you going to the information security side. So leveraging that, hey, I had to make decisions on a quick whim for XYZ reasons when I was in the military is no different than doing the same on information security. So obviously there's going to be different technologies involved, and you can learn that over time, but the ultimate taking that leadership role and making the decisions for, hey, is this going to be a bad exposure or is it going to be a hack? We literally have an email box here that they just keep monitoring it, and for internal employees to send it. And in San Jose at the command center, it's actually a globe where they can show you how many hits around the world by minute, by second, where they're getting hits for information security attacks. So for me, that's what stood out for me for yours. It's like your ability to make decision makings on the fly is going to be huge on the security side. That's why I picked up for him, because that's in my wheelhouse. So I'll let someone else take the other.
That's actually really helpful. I appreciate that. It's one of the biggest things I've been struggling with is it's a pivot for me as far as careers and
Sure.
trying to translate that. So that definitely helps me.
It will never go away. It is the biggest expenditure of every corporation. It will never go away. So if you want to connect offline, I could give you all what certs to do, depending. We can talk about hardware, software, compliance, all of that.
Absolutely. That'd be great.
No problem. Anyone else want to take Peter or Julia? Juan?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. So just looking at Peter, my notes here, logistics manager, overseas. Again, well, we did talk about dependability as being a big point. So as far as utilization, I think a lot of the vets that I've spoken to in the past, roles like compliance and logistics are very prominent, because with compliance, you have detail orientation. And for those who don't know, what I mean by compliance is the validating a customer that you're facing, that they're, quote, for lack of a better word, good people. So you have to check databases to see if their name is on an OFAC or a sanction list. You have to, in my business, I deal with moving metal around the world, gold, silver. So we have to worry about narcotraficantes, drug dealers, money launderers, smugglers, people who forge documents. I mean, it's absolutely crazy, the stuff that I've seen. And as you say, the devil is in the details. So if you're somebody that's detail-oriented, fields like compliance, logistics, where you don't have a margin, or even on the bank side, trading is another thing where you got to get the right price. You have to make the right decision. Certainly nothing compares. I'm not a veteran. My father was, and obviously thank you for your service before anything, which is what we usually open up with during these meetings. But the closest I think I've seen to that type of combat is, at least in the financial world, is on a trading desk where you're locked in. There's people to the left, people to the right. It could be a managing director with an associate, with the VP. It doesn't matter. You all are there, and you make a wrong move. You buy instead of sell, or you hit one key versus another, or you have the wrong what we call the handle, meaning the let's say a price has 4 digits. You don't really concentrate on the first 3 because you should know them. You focus on the last one when you're quoting. But if you don't know the handle, meaning if you don't know the first 3 numbers, you can misquote something. And I think that's a very important aspect to what you're doing. Oh, looks like our session's wrapping up soon. So, any other vets want to chime in? Oh, okay.
The other part of things that I was interested in is event planning, something else that I do for the club here. And it's a very bad time to be applying for a job as an event planner. Everything's canceled. So yeah, interesting, weird times.
Absolutely. And, looking at event planning, I only have 13 seconds left, but these people still got to get married, and baptisms, confirmations. It's not going to go away.